Try to remember what you ate for dinner 2 Tuesdays ago. Not last Tuesday. The one before that. If you're like most people, you've got nothing. Not a blurry image, not a vague impression, just a blank space where a real memory should be. And here's the strange part. You were fully conscious for that dinner. You tasted it. You probably had a conversation while eating it. Your brain recorded every second of that experience in real time. And then, at some point between that Tuesday and right now, your brain looked at that memory and made an active decision to throw it away. Not lose it, not fail to store it. Delete it, on purpose, as part of a system that's working exactly as designed. Forgetting isn't your brain malfunctioning. It's your brain doing its job. This flips the usual assumption most people carry around, which is that memory is basically a filing cabinet, and forgetting means a file got lost or a drawer got jammed. That's not what's actually happening in there. Your brain isn't struggling to hold on to memories and occasionally failing. It's running an aggressive, ongoing deletion process, and understanding why reveals something genuinely strange about what memory is actually for. Let's start with the raw numbers, because they explain almost everything. Your brain takes in an estimated 11 million bits of sensory information every single second. Sight, sound, smell, touch, the position of your own limbs in space. All of it, constantly, non-stop, for every waking moment of your life. Your conscious mind can process maybe 50 bits of that per second. 50 out of 11 million. If your brain tried to store even a meaningful fraction of everything it takes in, you wouldn't have a mind. You'd have noise. Actual identity, actual thought, actual decision-making requires massive, continuous, ruthless filtering. And forgetting is that filtering system in action. Here's where it gets more specific, because your brain isn't randomly deleting things. It's using a process researchers call synaptic pruning, and the mechanism behind it is almost architectural. Every memory you form exists as a physical pattern of connections between neurons, called synapses. When you experience something, specific neurons fire together and form a connection. The famous shorthand in neuroscience is neurons that fire together, wire together. But here's the other half of that sentence that almost nobody quotes. Neurons that stop firing together, stop staying wired together. If a connection isn't reinforced through repetition, emotional significance, or continued use, your brain treats it as structurally unnecessary and physically weakens that connection until it essentially disappears. This isn't corruption. It's maintenance. Think about what your brain is actually managing here. You have roughly 86 billion neurons and up to a quadrillion synaptic connections at various points in development. Maintaining a synapse isn't free. It costs metabolic energy just to keep that connection alive and functional. Your brain, unsurprisingly, is not interested in spending precious energy maintaining a detailed neural record of a sandwich you ate without really thinking about 3 years ago that led to absolutely nothing important happening afterward. So it stops investing in that connection. The synapse weakens. Eventually, it's pruned away entirely, and the memory doesn't get erased so much as it stops physically existing as a retrievable structure in your brain. Now here's a detail that makes this whole system even stranger. A huge amount of this pruning doesn't happen while you're awake and going about your day. It happens while you're asleep. During certain sleep stages, particularly deep slow-wave sleep, your brain runs something close to a nightly maintenance cycle. It replays the day's experiences at high speed, and during that replay, it appears to make decisions about which connections get reinforced and which get allowed to weaken. Some researchers describe this as your brain essentially triaging the entire day while you're unconscious, strengthening what seemed to matter and letting go of what didn't. This is one of the reasons chronic sleep deprivation is so brutal for memory. You're not just tired the next day. You're interrupting the exact process your brain uses to decide what's worth keeping. So what actually determines whether a memory survives this process or gets quietly deleted? A few factors seem to matter enormously. Repetition is the obvious one. If you keep returning to a piece of information or a moment, your brain reads that as a signal that it matters, and the connection strengthens instead of fading. Emotional intensity is another massive one, and this is why you can probably remember exactly where you were during a genuinely shocking or frightening moment in your life, while an entire ordinary month from the same year has essentially vanished. Your brain has a built-in system, largely centered on a structure called the amygdala, that tags emotionally significant experiences as high priority, flooding those memories with the biological equivalent of a permanent marker instead of pencil. Relevance to your goals and survival matters too. Information your brain judges useful for navigating your actual life, faces, routes, threats, rewards, gets prioritized over information that doesn't obviously connect to anything you're currently doing. This is where the story gets genuinely counterintuitive, because you'd assume a better brain would be one that forgets less. More storage, better performance, right? Actual neuroscience suggests almost the opposite. There's a growing body of research proposing that forgetting isn't a failure of memory, it's a feature of intelligence. A brain that remembered everything with equal weight and clarity would struggle enormously with generalization, with pattern recognition, with the basic ability to extract a useful rule from a pile of specific experiences. If you remembered every single instance of eating breakfast in perfect isolated detail, thousands of nearly identical, richly detailed memories, you'd struggle to form the simplified, useful mental concept of what breakfast even is as a category. Forgetting the specifics is what allows your brain to build abstractions, and abstractions are what let you function efficiently in a world that's constantly throwing new variations of familiar situations at you. There's also a case to be made that forgetting protects your ability to update your understanding of the world. If your brain preserved every past prediction and every past belief with the same intensity as your current ones, changing your mind about anything would become a genuinely difficult computational problem, competing against a permanent, undiminished archive of everything you used to believe. Letting old, unused information fade makes room, cognitively and possibly literally, for new information to take priority, and lets your model of reality stay current instead of getting cluttered with outdated versions of itself. None of this means memory loss is always harmless. Certain kinds of memory loss, particularly the kind associated with conditions like dementia, involve pathological breakdown far beyond this normal pruning process, and that's a genuinely different phenomenon with different mechanisms. What we're describing here is the everyday, healthy, constant background forgetting that every single functioning brain performs continuously, the kind responsible for that Tuesday dinner you genuinely cannot recall no matter how hard you try. So the next time you're frustrated that you can't remember something, a name, a detail, an entire conversation that apparently happened, it's worth reframing what's actually going on. Your brain didn't fail you. It made a decision, silently, automatically, according to rules shaped by millions of years of evolution prioritizing function over storage. It looked at that memory, calculated that it wasn't emotionally significant, wasn't repeated, wasn't relevant to your survival or your goals, and quietly, efficiently, let it go, freeing up biological resources for whatever your brain has judged more important to remember instead. Forgetting isn't the opposite of a good memory. It's one of the requirements for having one.